Hey, what's going on? This is Scrambles. Today we're going to talk about WeakAuras 2. It's a highly involved, incredibly intuitive add-on that will allow you to monitor and track almost anything in-game. Self-buffs, debuffs, target buffs, debuffs, procs for enchants, trinks, anything under the sun really. So it's an incredible add-on that will allow you to modify the game in such a way that you can keep uptime and maximize the efficiency based on the procs that you're currently receiving. This is just a demo on my Warlock where you can see the icons WeakAuras provides popping up and going off depending on what's happening, and also the bar I have there that fills up for my embers. What I'm doing here on the prot spec of my paladin here is just making a WeakAuras real quick to demonstrate some of the basics on how to track something like a dot. This is for censure. So basically what you've noticed is I've gone in on load, I put paladin. I don't like to limit it to player names or toon names or anything like that, because if I make another paladin on another realm or horde, something like that, I don't have to go and load it again and redo the whole thing. So basically it'll just auto load it at that time when those qualifications are met under load. For trigger, basically this is a debuff that stacks on my target, so I select those options. The debuff's name is super important. It's censure, so that's what I've typed in, and also I selected the option there for own only. What that means is it will only report back my own. I had a lot of trouble at first because I didn't select that option, so other paladins stacking censure on my Warlock, other paladins stacking corruption, got really confusing, and it took me a little bit for that to kind of click in my brain. But long story short, click own only on most things. Things like Warlock's Curse of Elements, not necessarily that it's your own. It can be any Warlock's Curse of Elements. So something like that, you would leave that unchecked. But for most things, you're going to make sure that option's selected. So this is a little test here. Basically, what you noticed whenever I set it up was for it to display. I set it over to the left there, just off of my toon's feet, in a nice little clear area. That's still centric to my toon's position, so that way I'm not diverting my eyes left and right very far or up and down, something like that. I don't want to look way off of my character to see this. So what it's doing now is it's tracking the duration, and censure also has stacks, so I want to track that as well. What you're seeing right now is me generating a just a little text. So the first one's an icon. I use the auto icon for the censure. Now I'm making a text for the stacks. So basically it's going to load up kind of the same way. It's going to trigger the same way. Essentially it's going to be a stacking debuff on my target, and I want my own only. So I set all those options appropriately, and then I go to display. In display, I want to make sure it's not the percentage sign P, it's the percentage sign S for stacks. And what'll happen then is it'll display what I want to see. I just kind of move it over here. I'm gonna make sure I click the little eyeball so my censure pops up, and now I can just kind of set it in the middle underneath there. So after I get all that set, it's just a quick little test here to watch that stack up. There you see the censure duration pop up, you see the stacks start to build, so I know it works great. The nuts and bolts behind this is I want to switch seals, so if I want to go to like Insight and help heal myself, or Battle Heal or something like that, I can get extra damage by swapping around. And I always know that my censure here is at 5 stacks, I see the duration, I can swap back. So it's a little utility that WeakAuras allots me just by setting that up. So what we'll do now is we'll jump over to the Warlock, a couple other demonstrations of how to set some things up. Of course, you notice the badass swipe there, Star Wars style transition. So anyways, what you see here is I've got my Trink proc set up, I've got my hero set up. Of course, I got an icon for Burning Rush, want to know when that's on. And then my execute up there as well. So if you notice, I kind of keep them all on the line, just keeps it nice and centric for me. And then on the right, you'll see Curse of Elements is always there, already there, and I'm going to base all my positioning off of that for for corruption, for agony, for unstable affliction, haunt, things like that. Alright, so this portion is actually really good demo on how to just kind of copy and save yourself a little bit of time. Obviously I've got a destruction set, and none of those are loaded, but of course something that transitions over like Dark Soul, I will want to make sure that I have the affliction version available, because they are different. So again, it's super important you give each one of these a unique identifier. Get pretty specific with it, because again, if you're like me, you plan on one or two, you end up with a few dozen, and it gets a little hectic. Anyways, you just right click on it, you click copy settings from, and then you select the icon that you want to copy from. Now if you'll notice, of course, it's making it absolutely identical to the destruction. So after it's copied, I just got to go in there and change a few things like the load. Obviously I don't want it to load in destruction, I want it to load in affliction. And then I'm going to actually have to change the spell name itself. Dark Soul is certainly different from destruction to demonology to affliction. So in this case it's going to be Dark Soul Misery, and I'm going to get that set up. Basically what I want to know is, one, when it's ready, and then the second one is the duration. So whenever I fire it, it gives me the you know, how long it's lasting. That way I know when to refresh my dots for pandemic. So here in this display, of course, you can see the Trinks proc, the meta procs, and then I proc my Dark Soul. Bear in mind, none of this video stuff is like my true quote-unquote rotation or anything like that. It is purely for testing purposes. So that's a real handy little tool right there. And next we'll set up dots, and then we'll also set up pandemic timers, or at least how I like to do them. So here, what you'll notice, we're going to set up much like we did Censure, only we're going to start with lock dots. First one being corruption. Again, load is super important. We keep track of that. You can select whether it's in combat, only in specific zones, and things of that nature. In this case, I just want any affliction lock I make to track corruption. Naturally, I could change that for demonology if I ever made plans for that in the future, but barring any kind of updates in 6.0, you know, right now I don't have any plans on that. Again, want to track own only, and it's all going to be much the same. Display, naturally, you're going to pick whether you want stacks or progression, stuff like that. One stack of corruption, so tracking that wouldn't be super helpful, but we're going to change that to count down the duration, and that will be really nice. Other than that, just setting up where it's displayed on your screen somewhere convenient is really what you want to focus on. I'm leaving all the footage in, I'm not really cutting much out, because I just want there to be an understanding that it is an investment of time. This one isn't like an add-on like GTFO or anything like that. You're going to put a little work in. You're going to you know, donate a little time to yourself for this. You know, I know kind of what I'm doing with the tool, and it still takes me a little while to set everything up just the way I want it. As you get better, things will speed up, but it's certainly well worth it, because the production, the efficiency, and things like that that you'll notice out of yourself in a raid environment is certainly well worth it. So this is just me setting up the rest of the dots for my affliction spec here, and getting them all arranged and things like that. I'll have little tests and demos here in a second. Well, this is a little example of setting up like an artwork icon. They've got some, you know, in stock. Also, you can use like 3D models, bars, and things like that. Again, the flexibility and adaptability of this icon is almost unlimited to the imagination. So, again, just touching on basics here, what I'm doing is setting up just like the dot itself. I want it to track duration, want to track a specific dot, and I'm gonna have it do something a little bit different. Now, you don't have to use, I mean, for any warlocks out there, or if you have an ability in your class and spec that's kind of like this, you don't have to use something separate. If you want to really get crazy with your original icon, you can have it pulse, you can have it shake, and things like that whenever you enter the pandemic window. For me, in a raid environment, it wasn't noticeable enough. I tried it, and I just wasn't efficient enough with it due to my own, paying attention to other things, timers, what's on the ground, and things like that. So I wanted something just a little bit different. So I decided to go. You can choose one of these icons. You can flip them 360. So if it's not fashioned just right for you, you can adjust that. But I modified that in such a way, like I'm showing you now. That way I know when I do enter a pandemic window on one of my dots here. In a couple of moments I'll kind of explain what pandemic is for people who don't play warlocks, and for warlocks who kind of don't know their class. So what you'll see is I just kind of move it over the dot itself. And again, it's going to track the same thing, but there's going to be a second trigger, so that'll be something that's unique about these. The second trigger will actually tell it when it needs to start doing its animation and pop up and everything like that. I'm going to resize it. I'm going to position it over there, and again, what you're going to see is whenever it enters the refresh window, it's going to pop up, it's going to pulse, and that's going to catch my eye and let me know, hey, if I got a shrink proc up, I want to take advantage of some additional DPS, I can certainly do that. The cool thing about this is, and the important thing to understand on the second trigger, you can set it up for an either or both. Either or meaning, hey, this event or this event has to happen. Both means both these things must be true for this icon to display. Then we're just gonna, fast forward motion here while I set up the other dots in the same fashion. Also, again, for people who don't know what pandemic is, basically, as a warlock, whenever your dot enters 50% of its baseline cast amount, you can refresh it for no DPS loss. It'll just add 50% to it. So essentially, if you have a 10-second dot, once it hits 5 seconds, you can recast it, and boom, you got a 15-second dot. So in your mind, you want to kind of keep track of what's going on, because if you have a bunch of haste and intellect procs and things like that, you're going to want to refresh that once it hits that pandemic window, and then again right before that proc ends, so that way you get the max amount of time of buff dots. So this is just testing it out, and then of course I'm going to make some adjustments to line it up because I get OCD sometimes. Alright, so again, I didn't cut very much out of this, but I did cut some, just because, there is so much, and I didn't want to make the video 8 years long or anything like that. So again, sky's the limit. I mean, you can see here, I can track any of my procs. I track all my dots. It tells me when my soul shards get full and I need to cast haunt, things like that. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything like that, feel free to leave a message below. Hit me up in game, hit me up on the guild's Gmail, anything like that. I'm more than happy to help write auras, export the strings to you and things like that, or just answer questions in general. Obviously you could hit the dev up as well, but download it, use it, explore it. The possibilities are endless. So the bottom line is, if you're not using WeakAuras, you're doing it wrong.